Nigeria has joined the BRICS as a full partner. This, of course, leads to interesting scenarios. So where does South Africa stand? Does South Africa's influence get diluted because Nigeria is one of the giants of Africa? And, of course, I think 4 African countries now members of BRICS. Online, Dr. Paul Kariuki, Executive Director of the Democracy Development Program at the University of KZN and convener at the Africa Policy Circle. Dr. Paul Kariuki, welcome to African Mirror.
Thank you so much, Shafiq, for having me on the show, and good afternoon to your listeners.
It is interesting to see that Nigeria has taken the leap of faith. They are now a full partner in the BRICS embrace. What do you make of it? I mean, Nigeria economically could be a really big hitter, but of course Nigeria has a lot of domestic scenarios that it has to deal with.
Exactly, you've correctly said. I think it's a very strategic move from Nigerian point of view as a government, seeing that joining some of these emerging economies with sizable population together combined as BRICS nation. They represent about 3.5 billion people, which accounts to almost 45% of the global population size. And so from an economic and trading point of view, it's a strategic move. However, it does not come without its own challenges, because we must not forget that there is a context in which Nigeria is coming from, even as we join the bloc. The current administration made lofty promises during the elections period before the current president Tinubu came on board, and most of those promises have not yet been fulfilled, partly because of the global challenges that are facing all economies with a significant contraction that has limited economic growth in the country. But on the other hand, it's also the geopolitics surrounding the influence of United States on global trading affairs. So this bloc of BRICS countries provide an opportunity for Nigeria as a leading economy on the continent, as well as an emerging economy around the world, to join voices with other emerging economies to create an alternative where they can develop their own development agenda without being bullied by a superpower or super economy like United States. Of course, now we know President Trump has come on board and had already indicated that it's going to increase tariffs 100% if BRICS go ahead to form their own currency against the dollar. But Nigeria government is reading this correctly. Before you get to a time where a nation is blocked from trading fairly, he wants to be part of the South-South cooperation process so that they still have a say in the global economic landscape without really relying on the dollar or the United States to shape its agenda.
Yeah, I mean, we live in interesting times, because I personally think Trump's hand is somewhat heavy when it comes to the issue of tariffs, because I think in the medium term, it's going to really hurt America quite badly. In the short term, it's going to be emotional, and yes, a few dollars might flow into the coffers, but it's soon going to dry up, isn't it? And this is where I think BRICS becomes really important, because here, for the world, and you say 45% of the global economy, here is an alternative.
It's a serious alternative, and I think we are seeing more and more countries joining the BRICS formation, even from other continents like Asia and Latin America, because they can see this opportunity where they are able to influence trading opportunities with peers, so to speak, as opposed trading with directly, for example, United States, which, of course, now we had officially, it's America first and make America great again. The philosophy there does not include all other countries, and the negotiation may not always be in favor of African countries. So I think BRICS is offering an enviable opportunity to those African countries that are joining the formation, in many ways, is to create an alternative of dependency on the dollar as a currency for trade, but also on America that continues to influence how African development and most of these emerging economies in Middle East and in Europe and Asia and Latin America should pursue. Having said that, there is also responsibility on the Nigerian government, like all other countries that have joined the BRICS formation. That is, Uganda, it's Egypt, it's Ethiopia, and of course South Africa. There is a serious internal country mechanism that needs to be considered when joining this kind of blocks. One of those issues is to ensure that the domestic ideals and challenges, ideals from the political development planning point of view, and the challenges, which is really more structural, high levels of unemployment, high levels of debt, and contracting economies, those needs to be put in place and always on the forefront of any country from these emerging economies that wants to join this bloc, so that they don't get also swallowed up with a bigger plan and vision of the BRICS, and the internal country vision is lost in that negotiation. That's the first thing. Secondly, is to deal with the systematic or what I would say barriers to economic growth from their own countries, dealing with issues of corruption. That's a big one in all these emerging economies. None of these countries have a very good track record of eliminating or eradicating corruption from its own ranks. So that needs to be sorted out if they're going to make the most out of this BRICS connection. The third thing, of course, is addressing issues of governance, that BRICS do not become also another tire or a sphere of political rhetoric in the countries that are joining there, so that it kind of creates an elitist political arrangement that excludes the rest of the country from beneficiation of joining BRICS. I think these three things are very key to any country that is choosing to join the BRICS formation. They must not lose sight of their own national development vision.
Yeah, it certainly is interesting, because if one looks at Nigeria's potential for economic growth is immense. And some analysts are saying that Nigeria's economic growth is predicted to be twice as stronger as ours, which is interesting for a country that is really struggling to keep on its feet, but yet its economy still has this potential to grow at the rate that it is already under these dire circumstances.
It is very true. And this is one of the concerns that I think an ordinary Nigerian citizen will be worried about their country joining such a big formation, because the potential for economic dominance as a country not here in the continent with very many strategic opportunities is immense. The key question one would think about is, would that potential be lost in joining the BRICS formation? And secondly, how will the beneficiation of the joining of or to the BRICS formation really trickle down to a household level? What will make ordinary Nigerian more excited to know that the country has joined this big South-to-South cooperation bloc and improve their ordinary living experiences? I think that is a big one, because look, these lofty economic moves look always good from a policy and a paper point of view, but rarely do they change material conditions of ordinary citizens. And so while it's a celebratory move on one hand, there is also serious concerns about, can ordinary Nigerians' lives be impacted positively because of the country joining the BRICS formation? That balance is usually one of those most elusive points, and we've seen in the existing BRICS formation from Africa especially, those who are already members, that reality has not translated to changing people's lives at the household level. And I think this is one of the things that will also confront the Nigerian population. Soon they get to know that, they, of course, from a bigger, grand scale, it's a powerful move, but on the other hand, is my life as an ordinary citizen going to change?
Yeah, those are certainly pertinent questions, because economic analysts are also saying that the purchasing power of the Nigerian population is nowhere near the purchasing power, for example, of the South African population. And then we move to other member countries such as Ethiopia and Egypt, where the purchasing power there of the citizen is well below that of South Africa, which is a very tiny country compared to some of the other member states. So do you think that some of these countries that are joining, such as Ethiopia, Egypt, and Nigeria, are hoping that somewhere down the line that the general population will be able, through economic development of the countries, to have more purchasing power, which we all know at the end of the day will increase the potential for meaningful trade?
I think from afar there is that light of hope that the inclusion of this big giant economy into the BRICS formation will translate to that kind of a reality. But given the examples of the already African countries that have joined and have been on the BRICS formation, some last year and South Africa since 2010, the one underlying denominator for all these countries that their levels of poverty in their countries is growing faster than their economies. So it begs the question, how will the joining into the BRICS formation translate to speedy change in people's economic livelihoods? Especially a country like Nigeria that has been for so many centuries an import-dependent economy. How will this joining change the situation so that the country does not go hand in cup always looking for money elsewhere and start looking inward first on what can they do internally first to reposition their economy so that they can actually harness a lot of these revenues that they go abroad for from the local domestic market. And of course, the other hand is who within the BRICS formation will be a good partner to trade with so that there is economic flow in a way that is going to affect ordinary Nigerians' life positively. I think we are yet to see the details around how these kind of questions will be answered. But from afar off, the political rhetoric is that, whoa, this is a great thing to do. Finally, we are part of a big formation that can help us. But go beyond the euphoria. What does this mean for me as an ordinary Nigerian at home?
No, absolutely. I think that's essentially a no-brainer. Do you think that some African leaders are in a hurry to join BRICS because some of them are clutching at straws? One just has to look at what happened in Kenya amongst the youth, what has happened in Sudan, what is happening in Sudan at the moment, and other parts of the world, Mozambique as well, where young people are no longer prepared to accept the old status quo. Could this be some of the status quo trying to desperately look for measures to ensure that they stay in power by joining BRICS?
That could be one motivation, given the context of our continent political leadership in the last, 4 or 5 decades so far. The trajectory has been current leadership being less interested in honoring their own constitutions by seeking to extend their terms of office, irrespective of their country's citizens' opinions on such. So that could be a motivator that a country would want to join a bloc like this one for peer support, if I put it that way. Mm-hmm. Just in case if if a particular administration decides to deviate from the norms of their own in-country constitution imperatives, they can have supporters from elsewhere who can still support a trajectory that will make sure that they still stay in power, but in exchange for something from their economy, of course, oftentimes is not in favor of their citizenry. That could be number one. Secondly, it's also that because for many centuries, most of our African countries have always been going around and cap in hand, borrowing money. And, getting to the fact that with Trump's administration now coming on board with very scary points of departures on how the country wants to trade with the rest of the world, BRICS offers an opportunity to negotiate with peers for access to maybe soft loans. Remember, we have China in the midst of BRICS, which has been very influential, positively and negatively on our continent as far as, access to financial resources is concerned. But of course, in exchange to some of our wealth that should not be going outside of the continent. But be as it may, some of these countries may be considering that route because with the signals that President Trump has already started showing, Africa is not in his favorite books, so to speak. So BRICS offers an opportunity to access, perhaps maybe not so high interest kind of loans, and even the possibility of negotiating, loans that are not demanding in terms of repayments, as opposed to what they could have gotten from the Bretton Woods institutions that are largely influenced by the United States. So there could be those kind of behind-the-scenes permutations that could be happening for countries to rethink, should we be part of this emerging South-to-South cooperation, and how do we, as a country, promote our development agenda, still remain politically correct with our citizens, at the same time also manage expectations. I think those are the kind of balancing act that those who have not yet joined the BRICS formation, especially from the continent, could be possibly looking into.
And on that note, we have to leave it there. African Mirror on Newsbeat every week, same time, different topic. Special guest, Dr. Paul Kariuki, Executive Director of the Democracy Development Program at the University of KZN.